talk about the sociological autobiography. As you know, this is worth over 40% of your grade. So this is the assignment that I have the highest expectations for. For that reason, I provide you a lot of resources. Not just this video explainer talking about what my expectations are for the project, but if you go to Brightspace and you go to your page, whether you're in the SOCH 5493 or the SOCH 6634, they're the exact same. So if you go to SOCH 6634, I'll just use that as an example, go down to where it says the big assignments. Under the big assignments, this is key. As you open the big assignments, you're going to see resources for both the visual essay. So you have videos explaining what the expectations are for the visual essay. You also have a rubric that explains what the expectations are. But more importantly, especially for this video, you have all this different stuff related to the sociological autobiography. So make sure to watch this video. Make sure to read through the assignment description. You can look at the rubric and see how I am going to grade you. This is where you turn in the assignment. But most importantly, or I shouldn't say most importantly, the most useful thing I think, which we will get to before we end this video, is the sociological autobiography, the checklist, and the outline. If you pay attention to this, so if you write your essay, if you follow the instructions, and then when you're done, if you go through and look at the checklist and you can check off every box, if you look at that outline and you think your paragraphs at least satisfy the expectations of that outline, you are going to get a very good grade. There are no surprises. There should be no surprises here. So, all right, what are we talking about with the autobiography? If you go to the syllabus, again, first thing you'll notice, 42.5% of your grade. So huge portion of your grade. Again, don't wait till the end. This does not have to be an incredibly long essay. The expectations are that it'll be 4 to 6 pages, a combination of two different essays, one that's about 3 to 4 pages and one that's about 1 to 2 pages, right? Together, you're going to be in that 4 to 6 page range. What you are doing with the autobiography is you are using something from your own life, your life experience, as data. This will not be your whole life experience. You don't have time in an essay that is that short. Instead, what you're doing is taking something from your life. It could be your experience with the way your parents raised you. It could be your parents getting divorced. It could be being on a sports team. It could be being injured while on a sports team. It could be being obsessed with a certain band. I've had people write essays about being part of a subculture of being Taylor Swift fans, for instance. It could be thinking about the area that you grew up and the school that you went to. Any of these things, right? It doesn't have to be your whole life experience. You're just talking about a specific portion, and you're using that part of your life as data. And then you are going to make connections to some sort of concept from class, right? So if you're talking about parenting and the way your parents raised you, obviously the connection to class would be thinking about the different parenting models, concerted cultivation and natural growth, and how that applies to your own experience and what we can learn from that. Right? So the first chunk of this essay is exploring your own life from a sociological perspective. This is where you are demonstrating your sociological imagination. Now, you do not have to do outside research for this essay. Everything you have is from your own life, plus the readings and conversations in class. However, if you want some sort of statistic to cite, that could be useful. It's not required, but it might be useful, especially in the introduction or conclusion, where you're setting up how this isn't just about you, it's about larger social forces. It's about larger trends. If you're someone who's examining participation in youth sport, or eating disorders, or the amount of people who go to college who do not go to college, well, it might be really useful to look up the numbers or percentages for any of those things and show that. If you're interested in people who vote versus don't vote, we have numbers on that. Take advantage of that. It's a useful bit of data, but you don't need to find like outside reading and things like that. Now, if you are going to get a statistic, make sure it's from a reliable site, and then you should also cite your source. For what you use from class, you should tell me you're taking an idea from the third lecture or from a specific reading, but you don't have to have a formal works cited page. The works cited page is really only for if you have outside sources, which again is useful, but by no means is required. Okay, so the first part of the essay is that. The second part of the essay, so I would write the first part, finish the first part, have a beginning, middle, and end, and then you move on to, in a sense, a second connected essay that will be shorter and 1 to 2 pages long, and you are going to shift at this point from using course concepts to explore your own experience to thinking about, okay, now what if I wanted to do a larger study of this? How would I do that? And here is where you can draw on all our discussion of methods throughout the semester. And you are not going to actually do the study. You are going to propose the study you would want to do. So you can be more humble in your goals and propose a study that would be actually possible for you to do while being a student at Brockport. Or maybe you want to go really big and say, this is the ideal study that I would do if I were to go on and get a PhD. And I really wanted to understand this thing, right? I would have this massive data set where I do a survey of all the graduating seniors in the United States. And here's the questions I would ask them. So you're going to propose how you would learn more about the topic that you wrote about. Say you write about the experience of people who have a parent and one parent is from Eastern Europe and the other parent is from South America, and it's about competing ideas about how to parent and about different cultural values, and you're exploring that. And so you want to say, I want to do a large study of children who grew up with parents from 2 different geographic locations and 2 different cultures, and so you're going to do focus groups. And so you would explain why you're going to do focus groups, how you would recruit the people for focus groups. You can't really get this part wrong. It's about how you justify why this is the method you would choose, and this is the sample that you would include in your study. So you've got these 2 different parts of the essay, right? You've got the first part, which is exploring your own life as data and then applying sociological concepts, and then the second part where you propose a study. Okay, so what are the resources I provide you? The first thing you might want to look at, which is basically a repeat of what's on the syllabus, to be honest, is I have the list or description of what the sociological autobiography assignment is. But again, this is virtually what's on the syllabus. Basically the same thing, just a little bit more depth. But it's saying, here's what the goal is, here's what I'm going to be looking for. Probably the least useful thing I provide you because, again, you have the syllabus and you have this video. Next thing, which is a little bit more useful, is looking at the rubric. This is a useful thing to just say, all right, well, what is he being me in this case, what is he going to be thinking about while grading? Well, I'm going to be thinking about, do you provide enough data, right? The data in this experience are examples from your life. If you tell me that you were on a sports team and that the sports team was basically working as a subculture, give me examples of that. Talk to me about the clothing people wear. Talk to me about the language that people use. Talk to me about the insider and outsider status that resulted from either being part of that group or not being part of the group, right? So do you provide enough evidence? Do you provide enough detail? Second section, do you actually make links to class concepts? Do you explain the class concepts? And then do you employ your sociological imagination to go beyond just saying, hey, this isn't just about me. This is about these larger things. We can learn something here. And then when I get to the method section, do you explain what method you're going to use? Is that choice justified? Do you explain who's going to be part of the research or your sample? Do you explain why that's your sample? Do you talk about the strength of your method, but not just the strength, you also acknowledge the limitations of that method? Hey, I'm doing focus groups. Here's one of the weaknesses of focus groups. Hey, I'm doing surveys. Here's one of the weaknesses of surveys, right? And you also, here's a key thing, you only need to propose using one method, or you could propose using mixed methods, meaning I'm going to combine multiple ones. If you do that, justify why. And then overall with the paper, I'm going to be looking at, is this well written? It doesn't have to be beautiful, but does it make sense? Did you proofread it? Do you explain your ideas? Do you break up your paragraph so each paragraph has 1 or maybe 2 at the most concepts or purposes? Or do you have one giant paragraph that goes the whole page or the whole paper, right? So that's what I'm going to be looking for. Now, we're getting more useful as we go on. This one is very useful. This is the one that I think is most useful. So this is the checklist and outline. So the checklist is when you are done with your paper or done with your draft, or maybe even the beginning, just to get a sense of what you need to do, go through this and say, Did I do all these things? Did I read the assignment description? Did I look at the grading rubric? Did I look at the outline below? Is it clear what my paper is about? Right? You're going to work through these. And if you can say yes for each of these, you are going to get a good grade. And then I tell you some other basic things, right? Make sure you have a name and title at the top. Make sure you have 1-inch margins. Make sure that your font is a reasonable size. Don't expand the spacing. Just basic stuff that you have to work through. So make sure you don't forget that. And then here, this might be actually the most useful thing I provide you. This is the outline. Now, you don't have to follow this. You could go other ways. I've had papers that are written in completely different ways. So if there's a different way you want to write it, you can. But here's how I would write it. And it makes logical sense to me. And it makes sure that you spend enough time in each section. Here's what I do. So I say intro, 1 to 2 paragraphs. Here's what I include in the intro. Then I say move on to the class concept. Here's what I would do in that section about how long it would be. Right? So you can work through and literally say, if I follow this, my paper will be about the right length. I will have a logical format, and I will provide enough information. So this should be really useful. Don't forget about this. And then the final thing I offer to you, which I haven't put on Brightspace yet, but I can if it would be useful for you, so just request this. This is not a comprehensive list, meaning I don't include every type of I don't include every topic students ever written about, but these are some of the things students have written about. And this is both for sociological autobiographies, but also the visual essays. So I've had students write about fashion, about athletes engaged in protests, so at high school level in their own experience. I've had people write about sacred items, about parenting, about online dating, relationships, role-playing, bullying, food, toys, traveling, breaking norms, gender and media, video games, sports success. All these different things are things you could write about. Now, choose the thing that you want to write about. That's the final point I'll emphasize. I give you a lot of freedom with your assignments because I want you to choose something that's interesting to you. Obviously, this is a final paper. It's worth a lot, so it's not exactly fun, and you're doing it because I'm telling you to. But to some degree, I want it to be fun. Choose to reflect on something that's useful for you. If you find it useful, and a lot of students do, to reflect on something bad from their life or something negative or something even traumatic, and then think about how social forces actually played a role in that and how it's not just them that experience it, that's useful to you. Write about that. Or write about something that you're really excited about, something you're happy about, a good thing that happened to you. Focus on that. Or maybe try to explore something you're curious about. Hey, I always wonder, I've always been obsessed with shoes, and I feel like that's part of my identity. How do I really make sense of that? So choose something that's interesting to you. You are going to be writing 6 pages. That's not a huge amount, but you're going to be writing 6 good pages. So choose something you're interested in spending time with. Okay, hopefully that was useful. Again, as always, email me or ask me questions in class or stop by office hours.